Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're ripping open the blueprint for how truly successful products, the ones that justify those massive multi-million-dollar R&D investments, actually make it to market.
Right.
We're talking about the high-stakes world of the product launch. I mean, you've poured countless resources, years of engineering effort, immense intellectual capital into developing something genuinely innovative.
Right.
The absolute last thing you want is for that brilliant engineering feat to just land with a dull thud in the marketplace.
The stakes are astronomical, and you've hit on the core issue there. It's about utilization. If you make a significant investment, whether that's in new tooling, new tech, or a decade of research, that money is basically wasted if the launch phase fails to convert that investment into revenue.
Right.
It's just not enough to deliver a great product from the R&D lab. You need a sophisticated, market-aware introduction that maximizes its impact.
And that's our mission today, isn't it? To find the strategic and tactical shortcuts that can fundamentally change the DNA of your launch process to make sure you steer that whole product portfolio directly toward measurable success.
Exactly.
So we're diving into a very structured framework that our sources call the offering-to-market approach. We're synthesizing material that details the critical, quantifiable value of speed time to market and the deeply embedded pitfalls of how large organizations traditionally approach launches.
And the necessity of aligning those global strategies with granular local knowledge. That's a huge piece of it.
Crucially, we're aligning everything we do with the customer's actual psychological buying phases.
We're moving beyond just the simple checklist here. We're getting into the organizational mechanics. I mean, how timing translates into billions in profit, how you map your entire complex sales channel structure, and how to build that crucial communication bridge between the central product teams and the local sales experts who are actually out there opening doors.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of the process, we have to establish the core conceptual shifts that's required. What is the single biggest mindset change we have to make to avoid, falling flat?
It's the pivot. It's the pivot from developing for the market, which is an internal, self-focused viewpoint where, the product manager congratulates the engineering team, to developing with the market in mind from day one.
An outside-in perspective.
That outside-in perspective, exactly. And that changes everything about how, and more importantly, when you allocate resources, it means launch planning isn't the finish line. It's the starting block.
So let's start with that fundamental driver, time. It's literally money in product development and launch. It's not just a cliche or a deadline on a calendar.
No.
It's essential to maximizing profitability across the product's entire lifespan. And we saw some really powerful analysis on this, specifically from the IBM Global Business Services analysis, that just underscores how vital a short development time and a successful rapid launch truly are.
Yeah, and it's important to challenge that common notion that faster is just, generally better. The IBM analysis goes way beyond that. It quantifies the compounding effect of an accelerated successful launch.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to maximize the area under that profit loss curve, that big, beautiful green zone of cumulative profitability, you have to strategically shift the entire product life cycle to the left.
The whole thing.
The whole thing. And the source data, it pinpoints 4 critical ways that speed impacts the bottom line, and they are cumulative. They build on each other.
Okay, let's deconstruct those 4 profitability factors, because this is where the money is either made or, lost. The first one feels like the most direct benefit. Cost reduction.
Certainly. It's the most straightforward. I mean, if your product development phase lasts 3 years instead of 4, you have inherently saved 1 year's worth of engineering salaries, administrative overhead, utility costs for the R&D facility, financing costs.
No.
Every single day a product lingers in development is a cost sink, period. It doesn't matter how efficient your engineers are. So shortening that phase directly translates into immediate, guaranteed savings that increase your product's initial profit margin. It's the low-hanging fruit of speed.
Okay, that makes sense. And once that product is ready to ship, speed then translates directly into market dominance.
That's great.
But if everyone is rushing, is that dominance really guaranteed?
It's not always guaranteed, no, but it's definitely amplified. This is the second factor, capturing market share. A faster launch, especially if you have what we call a game-changing product, something genuinely innovative that the market just hasn't seen before, it allows you to be the undisputed first mover.
Right.
That early lead, even if it's only, say, 6 months ahead of your closest competitor, allows you to capture a much larger slice of the pie. And more importantly, those initial sales generate crucial, real-world customer data and feedback.
Which lets you iterate faster.
Exactly. You can iterate and improve faster than your slow competitors who are still trying to get version 1 out the door. That early market presence can quickly become an insurmountable barrier.
So you've cut the internal
Hmm.
costs, you've claimed a larger initial market share. The third factor, then, is this extended duration of profitability. This is where the long-term compounding really starts to kick in, right?
This is it. I mean, think of the math here. Let's say your product has an average competitive lifespan of 5 years before a new generation or, a paradigm shift makes it obsolete.
Okay.
If you launch 1 year earlier, you have extended your total revenue collection time from 5 years to 6 years. That's a full 20% increase in the time you are selling a product that is ahead of the curve.
Wow.
And because you launched faster and you grabbed more share, you can sell more products during that extended period, and you're doing it at a lower initial cost base.
Okay.
This fundamentally increases cumulative profitability all along the product lifecycle. You've just maximized the time your product is the newest, most profitable option on the market.
I often hear companies focus just on that initial product sale, but this source material points out this crucial kicker that amplifies these profits even further: the service revenue impact.
This is so critical, especially in B2B or, complex industrial sales. Profitability isn't just driven by the initial hardware or the software license sale. It's also driven by the long tail revenue streams, things like maintenance contracts, upgrades, subscriptions, spare parts.
The sticky revenue.
The really sticky, high margin revenue. And by launching faster and capturing a larger market share early on, you establish a much larger installed
Yep.
base.
So if I launch a year late, I might capture, say, 20% of the market share, and my competitor grabs 40.
Precisely. And if you captured only 20%, you were only generating service revenue off of 20% of the available machines or software installations out there. But if you launch successfully and capture 80% of that initial install base, your service revenue, which again is typically much higher margin than the product sale itself, is amplified by a factor of 4. By shifting that entire P&L curve to the left, you not only reduce the initial loss period and extend the sales period, but you dramatically amplify the high-margin service streams that sustain the business long term.
So that's why speed, combined with that early preparation, is just, it's non-negotiable.
It's everything.
So if the financial case for speed is so overwhelming, why do large, smart organizations still struggle so much to achieve it? It often comes down to their starting perspective, what we're calling inside out. This is that comfortable but deadly traditional process.
The inside-out perspective is born from organizational silos. The primary focus is always the development project. The engineering team, they see their success defined purely by achieving the technical specs and handing off the finished code or hardware prototype. They're looking inward.
And this creates that classic sequential trap. You see it laid out so clearly in the sources. Development happens, then launch begins, and then you settle into maintenance and sales.
A straight line.
It looks so clean on a chart, but it's just disastrous in practice.
It is a disaster. It's a disaster because the timing and the resource allocation are fundamentally wrong. Launch activities in this traditional model, they're treated as an ancillary task, an afterthought.
Right.
They only begin towards the very end of the development project, maybe when it's 90% complete. It's seen almost as an administrative box to check off, oh, we need marketing materials now, the product is almost done.
And just as bad, those launch activities, they often end soon after the product is officially introduced. They just assume a successful introduction equals success.
Yeah, the job is done.
The visuals that our sources use for this are so telling. You see the unhappy face for the late start of preparations, the panic, the rush, the last-minute fire drills, and then you see the even sadder unhappy face waiting 1 or 2 years later for any significant sustained sales to finally materialize. That lag time perfectly illustrates the cost of this inside-out view.
And you have to ask, what is happening during that painful lag time? The product is just sitting there, it's technologically ready, but the market is doing nothing. And why?
Because nobody's ready.
Nobody is ready. The sales teams haven't been properly trained. The pricing model wasn't vetted against local competitor realities. The marketing materials don't address the right customer pain points. And the distribution channels, they aren't aligned or prepared. That year or two of lag is where competitors catch up, market appetite cools, and the technological advantage you paid so much for begins to erode.
So we can pretty much summarize the risk easily. This model spends too little attention on launch preparations, and those preparations start far, far too late to build any momentum.
But why do organizations tolerate this? Is it just comfort, inertia?
I think it's often organizational hubris and the prioritization of technical perfection over market relevance. The inherent risk is a complete failure to utilize potential. A company develops a fantastic new product, a technological marvel that cost hundreds of millions, but it fails to reach critical mass because the market wasn't prepped, educated, or truly understood during the development phase.
So the product was built for the organization's sense of achievement.
Exactly. Not for the eventual customer's journey or the sales force's immediate need for commitment and tools. You launched a Crickets because nobody was ready for it. And that delay, it fundamentally destroys the profitability window we were just talking about. And that failure loop is what forces the strategic pivot, the outside-in perspective. If the inside-out view costs us a year in critical sales and just erodes our margin, we have to fundamentally rewire the entire organizational timeline to prevent that drag.
The core mandate here seems really clear. Instead of starting with the product, you start by looking at the market first. And you start the launch preparations early, integrating them into the project from day one, not just tacking them on at the end.
That's it. That's the whole paradigm shift. And it has two main steps. Step one is the market focus, which has to happen before any serious R&D dollars are even committed.
Okay, so what does true market focus entail at this early stage? What are we actually doing?
First, you're identifying targeted segments. And I don't mean just everyone who uses electricity. I mean deeply specific verticals, geographies, roles. And second, and this is much harder, is creating a differentiated value proposition based specifically on stated customer values.
Not just on the product's technical features.
Never just on the features. For instance, an engineering team might say, our new switchgear handles 20% higher voltage. That's a feature. The customer value is our equipment drastically reduces downtime and lowers your operational cost by 15% because of its improved reliability under peak load.
The second one is what actually sells the product.
Of course.
That seems like a perpetual challenge. Though forcing engineers to translate features into benefits, how do you, operationalize that?
You force the product manager, in concert with the local sales teams, to create the competitive differentiation matrix before the specifications are locked down. Before. If a technical feature doesn't translate into a clear customer value that differentiates you from the competition, you have to question whether that feature should even be built. It's hard, but it forces development to be market-led, not engineering-led.
Okay, so once that foundational market understanding is in place, step two is early planning integration. You're essentially building the commercial engine at the same time as the technical engine.
Precisely. This includes setting ambitious but realistic sales targets right away. Understanding the deep psychological buying reasons, why will a customer choose us over the nearest equivalent, and crucially, determining the necessary sales support right from the very beginning.
Right. So if the product is complex and it requires extensive installation guides and training,
then those materials have to be drafted concurrently with the technical manual, not after the prototype is complete.
and this is where the organizational culture really has to shift, touching on what you call the commitment factor. You can't launch successfully if the sales teams view the new product as just some imposed burden.
Achieving that commitment is absolutely essential. If we are launching globally, we have to involve sales representatives from the major markets during the development process.
So they're in the room.
They need to be sitting in those G1 and G2 meetings, influencing the outcome. Because when the product is ready for release, these key salespeople, they already feel ownership. They understand the value proposition because they helped define it, and they're prepared to sell it rather than being handed a finished box and told, go figure it out.
It transforms their role from being a passive recipient to an active stakeholder.
100%.
And the outside-in approach also recognizes that even the best initial plans are often, well, wrong, which requires continuous iteration through this concept of a phased launch and adaptation.
That's just the agile principle applied to sales. As the product manager, you should divide the total sales phase into distinct periods. Let's just call them launch, sales phase 1, and sales phase 2. The initial launch is critical, of course, but phase 1, say the first 6 to 12 months, that's where you gather the real data. The key benefit of this division is that after phase 1, you have a formal moment to stop, review all the market feedback, and potentially adjust the product itself. A quick iteration, a software patch, or modify the launch activities for the next phase.
So you can change the messaging or adjust the channel strategy for phase 2.
Exactly. This modification process significantly increases the likelihood that you achieve a positive sales curve that actually matches your initial expectations. It helps you avoid that unhappy face we saw earlier.
Okay, so moving from that strategic macro shift to the tactical necessity, a successful product delivery hinges entirely on robust support for your sales organization and your end customers. And to do this, you have to possess an intimate, detailed understanding of your go-to-market model, what we call the channel structure.
Yes.
You have to know the exact path your product takes to reach that end user.
Understanding this map is the absolute foundation for support customization. It helps the product manager determine exactly what kind of tools and information are needed at each touch point to enhance the possibility of a purchase. The source material, it provides a brilliant framework for this using a model like ABB's channel flow, showing a core organization selling through two main paths.
Okay, so the first path is direct, which involves their internal sales teams and representatives. This is the company's own voice.
Correct. These are the ABB front-end sales and dedicated sales representatives. They are a direct extension of the company, often managing key accounts or large strategic relationships. Support for them is typically easier to standardize. It focuses on internal training and detailed competitive intelligence.
But the second path is through intermediaries, and this is often where the complexity and the opportunity really grows.
Absolutely. These are companies like dedicated third-party distributors, retailers, or partners like ABB PS Power Services. In some contexts, they act as absolutely vital links in the chain, especially in global markets where they have the local language, the installation expertise, and existing customer relationships that the core organization just doesn't have.
Right, and both of these paths, the direct one and the intermediary one, ultimately lead to the end customers, which the sources segment into specific buckets. Utilities, both non-concession and concession, EPCs, and industries. Let's just pause here for a second, because this is where jargon can confuse things. Can you quickly clarify what an EPC is and why that utility segmentation even matters?
Sure. An EPC stands for Engineering, Procurement, and Construction. These are massive firms that specialize in designing and building large-scale infrastructure projects, like a power plant or a major chemical facility, and then they hand it over ready to operate.
So they're huge buyers.
They are massive buyers, but they prioritize ease of installation, integration, and cost efficiency because they have incredibly tight project deadlines and strict budgets.
Okay, and the distinction between concession and non-concession utilities.
So non-concession utilities are often fully regulated public entities or large private entities operating under strict regulatory oversight. They prioritize absolute decades-long reliability and regulatory compliance above everything else. Concession utilities, on the other hand, they might operate on a specific contract or a limited license. So they often have a stronger focus on immediate operational efficiency and minimizing capital expenditure to meet their contractual terms. The support needs for these two types of utilities are fundamentally different.
One needs detailed engineering docs for the regulators.
And the other needs robust ROI calculators proving a quick payback.
That customization is essential. So let's go back to customizing support for the intermediaries. If I'm the product manager, why can't I just give all my distributors the same shiny brochure?
Because different intermediaries have fundamentally different business models and motivations. If you treat them all the same, you support none of them effectively. Take two examples. Distributor A might prioritize low price. They're focused on high volume and margin on simple transactions or transactional engines.
Got it.
Distributor B, though, might prioritize specialized technical knowledge and reliability because they service highly sensitive, high-margin clients in, say, the chemical industry. They are solutions providers.
So if I hand distributor A glossy brochure about my product's unparalleled quality, I've already failed.
You've completely failed. You've given them a tool that hurts their primary motivation, which is low cost. They need streamlined, cost-focused marketing material, maybe evidence of rapid installation time or volume discount incentives.
And distributor B needs the opposite.
The exact opposite. They need detailed engineering data, proof of mean time between failures, and complex reliability sales tools that justify the premium price to their specialized customers. The depth of that customization has to perfectly match the intermediary's intrinsic motivation to sell your product.
And the same logic then applies to the end user segments. Utilities versus industries versus those EPCs. What specific type of support do they really demand?
They all demand different proof points. For utilities, like we mentioned, the support needed often involves proving stability, lifetime cost of ownership, compliance with IEC or AE standards. For an industry client, like a major manufacturer, the conversation revolves around efficiency, throughput, minimizing downtime.
So they need ROI examples.
Robust ROI examples showing how quickly your equipment pays for itself. And for EPCs, they need pre-packaged, easy-to-integrate solutions and training manuals that simplify installation on a construction site. It's never one size fits all. The product manager has to ensure the creation of clear, competitive value propositions, compelling case studies for their specific segment, ROI examples proving economic benefit, and structured service agreements that align with their operational models.
So it sounds like the product manager, instead of just managing the product, is actually managing a complex support library that's tailored to dozens of unique users.
That's a great way to put it. They become the architect of market readiness, ensuring that every single link in the value chain, from the transactional distributor focused on cost to the conservative utility focused on reliability, receives the exact customized tool they need to successfully justify the purchase.
Okay, so to deploy that highly customized support effectively, we have to connect the strategic outside-in planning directly to the customer's actual journey, both psychological and practical. We need to align our sales organization's efforts and all those support materials with the precise sales phases customers go through. This ensures we provide the right support at the right time to, win the order.
And this 5-phase journey is a standard framework, but it is frequently misunderstood. Too often, organizations, they jump straight to phase 3, evaluation, without realizing they've missed the foundational steps. A successful launch ensures the right tools are ready for every single step.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. Phase 1, problem or need recognition.
This is the initial ignition point. The consumer or the organizational buyer recognizes the underlying pain, the gap, the inefficiency. They don't necessarily know your product exists yet, but they feel the symptom.
You just know something is wrong.
Exactly. So the critical support focus here is recognizing and validating the existence of that need. Are we publishing thought leadership or general industry reports that help the customer articulate the exact problem they have? We aren't selling yet. We are teaching them to understand their own pain points.
And if we fail there, the customer never even moves off the starting line.
They're stuck.
Okay, so once that pain is recognized, the customer starts looking for relief, which brings us to phase 2, information search.
Right. So in this stage, the customer is actively searching for products, solutions, offerings that would satisfy that recognized need. They're just scouting the landscape, comparing general capabilities.
So the support focus here is purely logistical.
It's purely logistical. You're making your product information readily available, discoverable, and accessible across all the relevant channels. Your website, industry portals, distribution partners, third-party reviews. They need to find you quickly and understand at a high level that you might be a fit. If your product specs are buried 3 layers deep on some outdated website, you lose the opportunity right there in phase 2.
And phase 3 is where the heavy lifting happens and the competition really kicks in. Evaluation of alternatives.
This is the critical battleground. The customer is actively evaluating the 2 or 3 primary alternatives they've found. They're trying to determine which product is most suited for their specific needs, often based on a structured RFP or an internal cost-benefit analysis.
And this is where the company has to deploy all those customized value propositions we talked about.
Yes. Matching feature sits clearly to stated consumer needs, and crucially, focusing on sharp differentiation towards competitors. If your product isn't distinct, if the customer can't see the specific value match that justifies the price, the decision stalls or it just goes to the lowest common denominator.
So it'd be case studies, competitive battle cards for the sales team, detailed technical comparisons.
All of it.
Okay, so assuming the evaluation goes well, we move into phase 4, purchase. The customer is committed to buying your solution.
The intention to buy is formed. This phase is less about persuasion and more about execution efficiency. The support focus here is strictly tactical. It's about removing friction points and streamlining the purchase process.
Things like making sure legal contracts are easy to navigate, delivery schedules are clear.
Financing options are transparent. Any last-minute administrative hurdles that might cause the customer to experience pre-purchase anxiety are swiftly eliminated. If the competitor makes it easier to sign the contract, you can still lose the order right here.
Okay, and finally, phase 5, post-purchase behavior. Now let's be blunt. Why is the product manager still worrying about this? Isn't handling doubt or regret the customer service team's job once the product is sold and installed?
That's a fair challenge, and it's a classic failure of the inside-out mindset. In the outside-in model, the product manager must remain accountable for Phase 5 because it directly influences the entire future of the product portfolio.
How so?
Well, after the purchase, the customer may experience what's called post-purchase dissonance buyer's remorse, doubt, regret, especially after a complex, expensive B2B purchase. If this isn't addressed immediately and successfully with rapid support, proactive follow-ups, and ensuring a quick implementation, that customer becomes a dissatisfied detractor.
And a detractor impacts future sales.
Significantly. The company absolutely must take care of post-purchase dissonance. This action is critical because it doesn't just spread positive word of mouth for the product, it also significantly increases the chance of frequent repurchase and future project collaboration.
Right. If the customer is a large utility, securing that repeat business from a loyal Phase 5 customer is infinitely more valuable than finding a new customer back in Phase 1.
Infinitely. The product manager needs to ensure the right support structure training, quick start guides, high-touch customer success checks are designed and ready for deployment immediately after the sale. It's the closing loop that drives portfolio success.
So we've covered strategy and sales execution, but none of this is possible without a robust communication structure, especially when you're dealing with global product development and local market execution. We have to bridge that gap between the global teams, the product developers, and the local teams, the market experts.
And the painful reality, as we've noted, is the inefficiency created by isolation. Global and local teams, they often operate like two separate companies, completely disconnected from one another.
Right.
And in many cases, the local teams are only involved in the very last step, the actual introduction, or in the worst cases, not at all, which leads to products that are brilliant in theory but fundamentally unsuited for the local market reality.
They're missing a crucial certification, or they're priced completely out of the local competitive range.
Exactly. But the local teams are vital stakeholders. They can't just be treated as mere recipients of the final product.
No, they're indispensable because they provide critical, specific knowledge on local market conditions, competitor movements, regulatory frameworks, and highly specific customer needs that a centralized global team simply cannot possess.
They're your market intelligence arm.
They are, in essence, the door openers for new global products. If they are excluded until the last minute, the product is highly likely to be misaligned with reality, regardless of how good the core technology is.
So the solution is mandated, early, and continuous involvement through a structured development framework. Many large organizations formalize this as the gate process, running from G0 through G5. And this can't be optional. It has to be integrated into the bureaucracy.
Right, because the power of the gate process is that it forces these structured interaction points. You have to integrate the local team's input and feedback into the product line strategy early on during G0, G1, G2.
Idea, concept, feasibility. This is where you prevent the major misalignments, like building the wrong features or pursuing an unrealistic pricing model from the start.
Let's focus on those early stages, G1 and G2, because that's where the DNA of the product is really set. This engagement happens through structured interactions called reference meetings. How do these meetings help major market contacts actually influence the outcome?
These meetings are mandatory check-ins. They're designed to incorporate that external knowledge and achieve that earlier commitment we talked about. For example, at the G1 reference check, the teams analyze competitors in their local area, they identify the critical localized customer needs, not just the global ones, they establish the expected market price point for that region, and they review the initial proposal concept.
So if the global team designs a product they anticipate selling for, say, $100,000, but the local Japanese team knows the primary competitor just launched a very similar certified product for $75,000, that conflict has to be resolved at G1.
That conflict has to be brought to the surface. Exactly. That local team's input right there directly influences the very DNA of the product. It forces the global team to either adjust their cost structure, refine the feature set to justify the higher price, or potentially decide that specific price-sensitive local market has to be carved out of the initial target.
And if they wait until G4, that $100,000 product is already built and the investment is sunk.
And then he's gone, yeah.
And the G2 reference define meeting pushes that definition even further.
The G2 reference define meeting focuses heavily on defining the key market segments and the specific customers for the new product. The local teams are the experts here. We need their input to confirm we are targeting the right users. the utilities, the specific EPCs, the specific industries. This continuous feedback loop ensures that as development continues, the major market contacts are informed and can influence the outcome of the product features, rather than just being passive spectators waiting for the finished goods.
And that engagement doesn't stop. It continues all the way through the later stages, G3, G4, and G5, leading right up to the final release and handover.
Yes. For instance, the G4 reference plan is the final check before pilot production. This step is specifically for planning the local launches and defining the needed selling support. This step absolutely requires local teams' input to ensure the support material that's created. The marketing collateral, the customized ROI calculators, the sales tools, all of it addresses the identified customer needs within that specific local competitive and regulatory context.
So if the global team designs a beautiful English marketing campaign, the local teams are the ones who make sure it translates effectively and aligns with local cultural nuances and regulations.
They're the reality check.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the goal is moving away from these sequential handoffs toward a truly interdependent network.
That is the ultimate aim. Interdependency. You have to identify everyone, formalize those communication channels, and create a network that works interdependently. Information has to flow in both directions. Global informs local about product specs, and local informs global about market realities.
It has to be mutually beneficial. And practically, this means global teams need to stop hoarding information. They have to actively identify their entire network of key contacts globally, share product roadmaps early, and critically, store all the tools, templates, reports, and relevant material on a common platform to help the entire portfolio succeed globally. This makes a launch a shared, integrated responsibility, not just another department's problem. Hashtag outro.
This has been a really extensive deep dive into fundamentally shifting your approach to product introduction. We've covered the dramatic financial leverage you can gain from fast, successful launches, the necessity of that strategic shift from an internal, inside-out focus to a continuous, market-driven, outside-in engagement. We detailed the tactical support required for channels and customers through those 5 sales phases.
Yeah.
And finally, the vital communication structure you need to align global vision with local reality using something like the GATE process.
And to reiterate, making large investments requires a successful introduction to better utilize those investments and steer the entire portfolio toward profitability. The biggest takeaway, the operational truth here, is that successful launches are not a final sprint bolted onto the end of development.
Yeah.
They are a continuous, integrated organizational marathon that's planned from the very first concept stage. It requires market knowledge and sales commitment long before the product even exists.
So what does this all mean for you? Given the strong emphasis we placed on customized support for deeply segmented channels and customers, consider a specific challenge you're facing right now. Think about how the specific channel partners you work with might prioritize quality versus price. If you have a premium product but your primary distributor, who acts as a gatekeeper to the market, only cares about driving low-price, high-volume transactions, what specific, detailed counter-support will you need to provide?
And by counter-support, you mean support designed to override their intrinsic interest.
Exactly. Is it detailed, audited ROI examples that prove the premium cost is recovered in 6 months? Is it structured service agreements that reduce their operational risk to 0? You have to build the precise tools to bridge that quality versus price gap and secure their genuine early commitment well before the customer even enters phase 1. That's your next deep dive into launch readiness.